MashaAllah. Khair. Yeah. Well, Sheikh, as you are an alim of the Madhab al-Hanafi, among other things, I wanted to raise this one particular issue that has come up over the past decade, and some scholars have expressed, sort of like the desire to transition beyond the clear division between territories between Darul Harb, and Darul Salam, right? And I've come across a number of young Hanafi fuqaha or mutafaqiha who basically say, okay, well, the West is Dar Harb, and then Dar Salam is, of course, the Muslim territory is ruled by Muslim leaders in particular, right? So, and um, I bring this up only because it seemed to me that it's a somewhat of a dissonance, perhaps in myself, in my own mind. Maybe I'm having a misapprehension about this, or maybe I'm seeing this correctly. It just seems to me that a lot of the same people, they'll say, okay, well, in the Hanafi school, riba itself there's no riba in Dar al-Harb, for instance, right? But then they'll say that, okay, well, you're guilty of riba when you indulge in certain types of transactions in these lands, So I kind of, is it possible to try to sort of help me to understand, like,
Yeah,
what I'm missing here?
mashallah is a very valid question. I think
Yeah,
it's an important question for scholars to ask
yeah, yeah.
about the separation of
Mhm,
law in a
mhm,
Muslim country
mhm,
versus a non-Muslim territory.
mhm,
So, first of all, the fuqaha have said
mhm,
that a place, a state, a country where you cannot enact Sharia law is Darul Harb. Now,
mhm,
the word Darul Harb
mhm,
means the land of war, but it doesn't
mhm,
mean that. It's a terminology. You
mhm.
cannot take it literally, otherwise you'll be
Right.
a fool, basically. And so
Mhm,
these are mustalahat and these are terminologies that the ulama use for their language and for their scholarship. So when you are not able to implement,
mhm,
Islamic law in the USA, then by definition it is Darul Kufr. It is Biladu Ghair al-Muslimin. It's a non-Muslim
mhm.
country.
Right.
In
And
non-Muslim,
I'm sorry, this cut you. So, and when you mean by implement Islamic law, you mean in particular what aspects of Islamic law?
everything.
Everything.
in,
Okay.
in
Right. Okay.
totality, from
Okay.
hudud to qisas
Okay.
to talaq, nikah,
Mhm,
waratha,
mhm,
everything that is now going to be
mhm,
the privilege of a Muslim country.
mhm,
If you cannot enact any of those laws that are, germane to Islamic State, then that is Darul Kufr. It is the land of non-Muslims, and we will apply the rules of Darul Harb in the land of non-Muslims.
mhm,
So that is not. As far as riba is concerned, Abu Hanifa's position is not based on his rationale. It's
mhm,
not based on qiyas. It's based on a hadith.
mhm,
So he found a hadith, albeit a mursal hadith of Imam Makhul,
mhm,
which actually says that there is no riba between a Muslim and a Harabi in Darul Harb.
mhm,
Those are the actual words. La riba bayn al Muslim wal Harabi fi Darul Harb. So
mhm,
he bases his, hukum on a hadith, which is a nas. It's not based on aql. It's not.
mhm,
Then what you call it. He reconstructed the rationale afterwards. Okay, what is
mhm,
the rationale in this hadith? So he went out with his usuli mind, as you know, and he constructed a paradigm and a theory as to why riba in Darul Harb doesn't exist.
mhm,
And basically, what it is that if you require Muslim government to enact a Sharia law, then where you do not have a Muslim government, then that hukum itself of applying that specific law is suspended at the very
mhm.
least. You're not
Right.
obligated. You're not mukallaf.
Mhm.
It's not like hudud, for instance. So in the
Yeah.
USA, you cannot enact hudud law because you don't have a Muslim country. And
Mhm.
if you do, you'll be put into jail or you'll be expelled from the country,
Mm.
whichever
Right.
one you choose. Okay.
Mhm,
So I'm saying
mhm,
then what is the hukum then of
mhm,
that particular law of Islam that Islam says you must enter Islam totally, comprehensively, holistically? Udkhulu fi silmi kafa.
yeah,
Okay? So what is the rule then? So the fuqaha in a very ingenious way said that where Islamic law is not applicable, those laws will be suspended at the very least. So Muslims will not be held accountable if they don't. So you're
Hmm.
not committing a sin if you don't.
Hmm.
Otherwise, if you say it's still applicable, then you will say that you are committing a sin, which is
Hmm.
what some usuliyun say, that you can't live in a non-Muslim country indefinitely.
Right.
Yeah,
Hmm.
otherwise
Hmm.
you're athim, you're a sinner. So in order to prevent the Muslims from sin in the USA, we say let's go with this usul of saying that in Muslim territories you can do everything Islamic, in non-Muslim territories you can't do everything that Islamic. So then you will be absolved from that duty responsibility, which is a rahmah. Okay,
Yes.
at
Right.
usuli
Inshallah.
level. Now,
Right.
riba comes into that, where in order to enact riba, the riba interest and transactions, commercial transactions, are the purview of the state, not the individual, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Meaning that
Yes.
if you had a transaction with a non-Muslim and you guys had a dispute, where would you go to resolve the issue?
Mm.
You go to the
Mm.
U.S. court.
Right.
You
Hmm.
can't go to the Muslim court; it doesn't exist.
Hmm.
So therefore, the fuqaha ahnaf say that likewise, riba, just like hudud, is an institution that cannot be executed in Darul Kufr. Therefore, riba based transactions will be exempt from a hukum in Darul Kufr.
Hmm.
That's the theory that they have. Okay.
Hmm.
Now, some people say this is flawed and whatever. It doesn't matter because we're not relying on our understanding. This is what the Ahnaf have said for centuries, from the time of Abu Hanifa to Muhammad to Qarhi to Kasani to Sarakhsi to Ibn Nujaym to Ibn Abidin and until now. And Shah Abdul Aziz, the great student and son of Shah Waliullah, he said the same thing about British India, right,
Hmm.
in his fatwa. So
Right.
I'm
Is
saying that
it
this is not something that's uh, invented. It's not a bid'ah. I mean, it is
right?
there in classical Islam.
Hmm. Right. Right. Well, I've heard a Hanafi scholars say that this particular ruling only applies in one direction. In other words, to say it's okay for a Muslim to charge a non-Muslim riba, but not the other way around. He claims that is the official Hanafi position, or at least that
No,
was
no,
my
no, no,
understanding.
no, no. The
Yeah,
Hanafis
yeah.
go both ways.
Right.
It's not unilateral. It's a two-way traffic.
Mhm.
You
Right.
can't do that. You can't separate one hukum and then
Mhm.
you say the other hukum doesn't apply. You can't do that. That is just a basic lack of usul, basically.
Yeah,
Right?
sure.
So most Hanafis will disagree with that. Some say it's the ideal, which I
Mhm.
agree. The ideal is that Muslims' money should not be compromised. I agree with that.
Mhm.
That's not how you do law. That's not how you do jurisprudence. Okay?
Right.
Jurisprudence has
Right.
to be neutral and fair.